Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Connected by Community, a podcast brought to you by Ballantine Capital Advisors. I'm Brian Ballantine. I'm joined with Anthony Colancheco from our office, and today we are pleased to have a second-time guest. Don't have a lot of those. Mr. Scott Crawford. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you having me back.
Absolutely. So we're glad to have you back because you're one of our favorite charities, and I want to brag on the podcast a little bit for a second before we get started about what we're doing this year. But last year, through this podcast, we were able to raise about $3,000, which translated into about $300,000 eliminated in medical debt, which leads into what we're talking about today. You're involved with a charity which does fabulous things for our community, locally, and then it's a national charity that does it all across the country. And so we want to re-educate our listeners, talk about this year's campaign and exactly what it does. There's also been a rebranding. So I'd like to get some more information from you about those things. So maybe share with us a little bit about what the charity does and how the rebranding has been going and what that's all about, if you would start there.
Sure. So the former name was RIP Medical Debt. It's now UNDUE Medical Debt, UNDUE. Also connotates undo the debt itself. And they changed the name a month ago, back in April. They had their 10-year anniversary just a couple weeks ago. And over those 10 years, they've eliminated $12 billion in medical debt, about 7.5 million families represented in that debt retirement. And if you look at the trajectory, the first 5 years, they hit $1 billion. 2 years later, they hit $5 billion. 2 years later, 10, and now they're at 12. So a nice trajectory. They keep growing, great staff, great focus, and they execute really well. And they execute really well because the founders were former debt collectors. And over their 30-year careers, they saw the other side of people who had these problems, couldn't pay the debt even if they wanted to. And when you combine that debt with medical issues and everything that comes with life, it's just a crushing combination. So they started this charity 10 years ago to leverage their expertise in finding this debt, buying it pennies on the dollar. So if you donate $1 on average, it's going to retire 100. So we talked about this last time. I've never seen a charity that could take so little and make so much of it. And they do it time and time and time again. I'll show you some ratios here in a little bit, specifically for the campaigns that we've done, because we've done better than that ratio here in South Carolina. So just tremendous results. This will be my fourth year putting a campaign together. The first time I just did a general one. The last two have been specific to South Carolina. And this year, we'll raise money to focus on the upstate, specifically the 5 counties and Savannah, Georgia. Doing that, Savannah included Savannah because Savannah doesn't have quite enough debt to do a standalone. And there's a company I'm working with that's going to contribute. They're based in Savannah. He also went to Clemson, so he's got ties to both areas. And then any money we raise over our goal will go to the rest of the state. If you look at last year, we weren't quite at the goal when we were going to wrap it up, and I was a little bit bummed. We did well. Don't get me wrong. But literally days before we were going to close it, somebody donated $100,000.
Wow.
Don't know who it is, anonymous. And so over the 2 years, we've eliminated $31 million. And probably about 26 of that has been in the upstate.
That is great.
And if you take a look at the families, it's about 10,000 in Greenville County, 4,000 Pickens, 4,500 Anderson, 1,500 in what county am I overlooking?
Oconee?
Oconee was about 500, would be the smallest. So the bulk of that money that we've raised has gone to the upstate. So that's when I looked at it, it's like, well, I'm just going to call it the upstate because that's where most of it's going anyways. But the spillover can still go to the low country and other areas in the state.
And I think that's important because we get asked these questions like, how can someone impact their local community? And like, this is real people. You're living around your neighbors. You're bettering your local community if you can get involved in something like that. And I remember from last year, I'm sure you're going to talk about it, or if you can't, maybe help out, like how much goes to the actual, if $1 is given, how much goes to be used versus administration. That's another key thing we get asked when they're given to charities, it really getting to the people.
Yeah, I was concerned about any charity. I try to do my homework on it. So when I first found them, I literally called the CEO and said, tell me about your charity. I don't know if you recall, but the story that led me there was a cancer diagnosis, found out my mom was in that situation, said, I want to go help someone like that. My doctor said, I think there's organizations that do that. So I did my research, found them, and it looked too good to be true. It's like, how are you going about this? So she explained it. To answer your question, 100% of what you would donate goes to debt retirement. They have other funding sources that would pay for the staff and things for development, which are necessary for them to exist, right? So it's got to come from somewhere.
Right.
So that was one key. They've got, since I've been working with them, 100 rating on Charity Navigator and GuidePoint. They've got the highest star rating you could get for both of those organizations. And then Mackenzie Scott, I think twice now, she's donated millions and millions of dollars. She was Bezos' ex-wife, I think still the wealthiest female on the planet, and just has a whole team that will go out and vet these organizations that she wants to contribute to. So outside of those ratings, she had an all-star team that said, yeah, this is legit. I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And that's where I said, okay, we can work with you.
Right.
So even if you want to make a small impact, $1, $5, it actually eliminates $1 for $100. Is that correct?
It's pretty amazing. I've been shocked at how little the amounts are. I'll give you a couple testimonials during the course of this, and they're $1,000 on average. So I'm thinking $1,000 for you, me. It's an amount, but it's devastating to a lot of people. And so if you donate $10, it eliminates that $1,000. So just the smallest donation is going to help a person get out of that struggle. And they do it. They use analytics to make sure it's people that are in those categories that can't afford it. They're not paying my bills. They're going to look at a couple key metrics in the poverty level and income levels relative to their debt amount. And based on that, they'll pull out those individuals, go by that debt. These folks don't know what's happening. They just get a letter in the mail saying your debt's been retired. If you want help with your credit, we'll help you restore that as well. And so kind of a full service. And you read these testimonials of people. I don't get to meet them. I don't know who it goes to, but then you hear some of the things that come back, so the situations they've been in. I was on the website last night, and you can go sort through the testimonials by state and category. These categories are like chronic disease, COVID. I mean, there was over 40 different categories that they put these testimonials in. So it just gives you an indication of all the different things people are dealing with, plus the debt. It's pretty overwhelming when you're in that situation.
Just how common is this in America? I mean, we all take our health for granted at some point in time in our life, right? And maybe we've had a good job with good benefits, or we've had good insurance, whether it was ourselves, our spouse, what have you. But you lose a job, you get sick, maybe your company cuts some type of job. Just how pervasive do you see this running through our country and affecting people?
Yeah, it's all over the country. It's not just South Carolina and places you might think there's pockets of it. It runs throughout, and it can happen to anybody. I think the latest statistics is that the majority of people live paycheck to paycheck. And so when you get hit with these bills, usually they're not expected. We were just talking, I've got 3 weeks ago today, I was rear-ended. I'm probably looking at about a $4,000 before insurance kicks in bill for the ER visit there. I've got two days later an ill-advised 3-on-3 basketball game that led to an ACL meniscus tear, and I've got that surgery on the 6th. So neither one of those was expected. Again, I'm fortunate where I've got the insurance. I'm going to be able to get through that without the financial worry. But I'm an exception there. Most people get those kind of situations, and they've got their daily lives. Sometimes they've hit unemployment, and they just can't take that bill on. Some of these bills with testimonials, they sit out there for 10 years, and they just can't get to it. And so it affects a lot more people than you probably realize. And
like you said, they can be small. I mean, for somebody who is down on their luck, and $1,000 or $2,000 bill might just be more than they can possibly handle because they're struggling just to buy groceries. And I'm sure with inflation being what it's been over the last year and a half, more of these core needs are, you're going to feed your family before you pay this old medical bill. But I'm assuming the medical debt collectors are reasonably ruthless, like most collectors. And so these folks are being hounded everywhere they go.
I had a $30 bill that was sent to another address. And so I had no idea it was out there. And all of a sudden I started getting a collector, 30.
For $30.
And she said, you owe this money. And I said, I'm pretty sure I've kept up on my bills. Maybe there's something off. She's like, no, are you so-and-so? Is this your birth date, whatever they verify on? I was like, yeah, that's me. And so we kept talking. It's like, well, where did the bill go? And she told me the address. Like, well, that's the wrong address. So I said, I'm hanging up now and I'm calling the provider. So I called them and said, you sent the bill to the wrong address. Get the collector, off the case, and I'll pay you directly the $30. But they probably spent who knows how much money to get that message to me. And so if they're going after $30 and the calling and I've heard nightmare stories where they'll call the boss and say, what a crappy employee you have, you should get rid of them, etc. They'll just go to, some of them will go to the links that are just ruthless.
So it can get into reputation issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That can, and it could be, like you said, just a change of address, an honest mistake that we all have, or it's a doctor you haven't gone to for 3 years. And who would have, they didn't think to ask for your address change, and what happens?
Mine was $10.
$10.
And they changed
Moving
you?
to South Carolina, I didn't pay the gym bill. And the gym sent it
Really?
to collection for $10. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's doesn't make financial sense, right? I'm talking to financial gurus here. Explain it to me.
Well, I think what happens with all debt collectors, and I'm certainly not in the debt collector business, but they're buying blocks of business, and all they're doing is going down a call list, and it's process oriented.
Yes.
A lot of it's automated.
Right. And I'm sure now some of it's getting outsourced overseas to cheaper labor. So if they can collect whatever dollars, but to ruin someone's life, their financial rating over address change, it's not even in your case, for instance, and probably a lot of Americans, there's this certain portion of America that could pay it if it was knowledge. So I know, and maybe you can talk about this. Are there any systems coming that you're aware of, and any legislation pushes to give people a second chance, or, hey, is this really the right address? Do we really have the right person? And I'll give a specific example. I don't remember if I talked about this last time. So my wife has a reasonably common name, Kathy. Our last name is not super uncommon, but it's not super common. But there happens to be another person in the community named her name. I don't know if I shared this story. Different middle names. They have the same date of birth.
Uh-oh.
This person happens to use medical needs differently than my wife, we'll just say, in, I believe, an illicit manner. She's on a lot of different medications. So we have gotten bills to her insurance that weren't my wife. And so my wife has had to learn how to navigate through that. And it's a challenge because this person's been in our local community, moved in and out. But I've thought about the John Smiths of the world, the James Smiths, the whatever, these really common names that might have been historically around. And I just wonder how much misbilling gets as well, And so you have misbilling, you have address changes, you have all these legitimate things besides the people who can't afford it. And so I'm curious if your organization has ever, and maybe y'all don't get into that, but are there any issues pushing Congress or legislation to say, let's tap on the shoulder and make sure that we just honestly get this taken care of, and then we worry about the people that can't, and then we can more effectively help them.
Yeah, I don't know about that specifically, but they do have staff now that spend their entire time focused on influencing legislations.
That's great.
And there's some at the federal level. I can't recall exactly what it was, but South Carolina passed a law a couple years ago to help facilitate the person in debt, and somewhat restricting how these organizations could go after it. So it's at the state level as well that it can be influenced. And but that, like I mentioned up front, their core mission is to get rid of the debt, but now they've got this related group. Not related, it's part of it, but to go focus on the policies going forward, so that someday maybe we can get rid of this problem where people can't afford these debts, aren't stuck with them over time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we see in our practice, certainly we deal with a lot of older folks who are retiring, and they're on Medicare even, right? So that these folks can have these issues for the rest of their life. So I want to make sure that people also realize this isn't something that just affects young families, especially can affect our elderly, because they can be a little more forgetful about paying bills if they don't have a loved one helping them. So that could be, they just can't honestly, it's more of, I didn't know I had the bill or how to handle it, or it could be I can't afford it because they're on a fixed income. So I suspect as we have this aging population, we have this whole subset of people too that are being caught really to not to their fault. I mean, they just don't have the acumen to deal with it because it's complicated.
It is complicated. We talked about this last time with your family as well. These bills come in, it's fast and furious. And like you said, if you're getting older, you've got to deal with the provider, you got to deal with the insurance company, and they add up. It's just, I think it could be overwhelming. I've got a mom who's not there yet, but she's in her mid 80s and has got some health concerns that she's got to deal with on a regular basis. So more and more, I'm going to have to make sure I keep an eye on that. But not everybody has that person that can help keep an eye on it. So it's I can see your point. It's going to be probably more pervasive going forward.
Yeah, and the benefits that we see on Medicare, the coverage is changing, especially if someone's on a Medicare Advantage. What's covered, what's not covered, and sometimes they need a guide with that. Certainly we are, but we partner with folks that do that, and then our loved ones, to help overlook it. So I think that's important. I know you see that as well when you meet with clients, and it's concerning. I don't know how many times we say per month, man, I'm thankful this person has a family member to help, but how many out in the community don't?
Yeah.
Let's talk about your campaign this year. Maybe you could just touch base on your goal this year, deadlines and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we just kicked it off. So there's a website out there. I'll give I'll tell you how to find it. The URL is kind of wonky, but again, it's focused on the upstate and Savannah. If we raise like we did last year, there's going to be plenty to cover other areas in the state. And we're going to relatively lower target in the past at 48K, but I can tell you already we're going to exceed that. So I'm sandbagging a little bit. And that 48K will go to probably about 5,000 families. You don't know until they buy the debt, but it's going to help a significant number of people here in the upstate and Savannah. The other thing that I noticed when I was talking to other nonprofits and seeing if they'd be interested in participating in the campaign, they loved the story, and then they branched off and created their own. So I think there's 4 or 5 others just from the outreach that they're helping their specific locality or their specific focus. First Citizens Bank last year was incredibly generous. For 2 years in a row, the Little Sisters Charity of South Carolina has been generous. But these other ones that I was hoping would participate in the campaign branched off and did their own, which is great. It doesn't have to be my campaign. They're out there helping people. And so I think throughout the state, this campaign is also spreading the word to others. In this concentration upstate, I've already met with 2 local Rotary groups. So if you're in Greenville, Spartanburg, you want me to come speak to your group, or it doesn't have to be Rotary, I'll be more than happy to come in and talk about it. And to your point earlier, what I've learned, the more local it gets, the more interest people have in participating. And so that's another reason why I kind of carved this out to say, let's help folks up here.
For sure. So one of the things we always encourage people to consider, for those folks that are 70 and a half or have to take RMDs, there's this wonderful thing called a QCD, Qualified Charitable Distribution, if they're given to charity. So something to throw out there to people to keep in mind, or if they have highly appreciated investments, they can give those to charitable causes. So there's a lot of cool strategies. We'd love to be a help for that, certainly, if we can. And one of the things we as a firm want to do is kick this off, and hopefully we can do better than last year. So I'm asking for your commitment out there. And so we're going to try to go to 4,000 this year, and Ballantine Capital Advisors are going to start with 1,000. So all we need is 3,000 more. And I know we can do that, right? So that's a good goal. And that hopefully helps out the local, being a local podcast and local in our community. It's important for us to impact. And we know right away we did last year. So hopefully we can help out a little bit this year as well, and partner with you guys. So I appreciate what you're doing there.
Yeah, I appreciate all that support. More importantly, the people out there that, because I could read a testimonial. Just
Please
to
do.
Give you an idea.
Please do. Love it.
Again, I don't get to meet these folks, but when you see this, it more than takes its place. So this is somebody in Gaffney. It was anonymous. It was 1,040 to my point about the average amount. The letter caught me by surprise when I received it in the mail. I wasn't sure whether it was true or not, or if it was some sort of scam to lure me into something else. I didn't pay it any mind at first because, like I said, I figured it was something too good to be true. I don't like to be skeptical about things, but nowadays people are usually more aware of what is being done to them. I appreciate the generous donors who took part in eliminating this debt and getting it taken care of for me. the way my income is set up right now, there's no way I'd know how I would come up with the money to pay this debt that I've owed since 2013. It's like, wow. So I deeply thank you for your support. You have helped me out a lot. And there's another one from Gaffney. This one's only 561. Won't read the whole thing. But she had decided to go to the hospital for treatment because it wasn't an issue wasn't getting better. She applied to Medicaid. It was approved. When she went through 6 months later, they said it had expired, so they wouldn't pay for it, and she couldn't get resubmission. She had children to care for and other bills, which didn't leave her much money. Even a payment plan would have her paying it for years. Affected her credit score. It was shopped around by a bill collection company trying to make them pay. Surprised, after years of this debt hanging around, I received this letter saying the bill was paid. I no longer had to worry about it ever again. It made me so happy to know that people are actually helping others with this debt many of us cannot clear up. It is such a blessing.
That's wonderful.
And there's just dozens of those on the website.
Yeah. So that folks can go out there and actually read these letters as an example on your website.
Yes.
That's great. And I think I may have shared this last time. One of the reasons I'm even in this business, my mom went through some medical issues when I was young. It's in the book that recently put out, Wealth on Purpose, and kind of tell my story. Thank you. A labor of love there. But I know walking that walk with my mother and the challenges that Bill's had, affected my parents, both their ability to just pay their day-to-day bills. And so I can tell you firsthand the effect. I think maybe I'll say a good outcome. I got into this business partially for that, and it's to help people understand to have proper insurances, whether that's health, disability, and also to invest properly so they can take care of themselves. But sometimes people are trying to do that along the way and they get knocked down. That's kind of where my parents were. They were on their way early in their careers. And so it's great that there's an organization out there helping folks either get back partially on their feet, restoring their credit. And I think it's a wonderful thing. So again, thank you for what you're doing. And I think it would be great. Maybe how could people find the campaign this year and the organization if they want to contribute? We certainly will be putting out on Connected by Community and on our business's website and promoting our help for this. But if there's someone out there that wants to come directly to your campaign for the Upstate, how could they find that this year? Yeah,
so you could go to Undue Medical Debt. It's UNDUE medicaldebt.org. Simply go to the search bar and type in either Upstate or Savannah, and it's going to pop up that campaign. You'll see my name on it, Scott Crawford. You have the right one, and from there it'll just guide you through how to donate. And you can do it with cash traditionally. There's other means there that you could leverage if you have those DAF or things of that nature to donate.
Perfect. Awesome. Anthony, what else?
Signature question?
Yeah.
I know he
already did it before.
He probably already did it, but he might have a different answer.
Yeah, a year later.
A year later. What makes you tick?
What makes me tick? These days, sometimes the doctor.
Great segue.
But actually, these I've got time to do things like this, and it's not 100% focus on career and things of that nature. So, taking care of this, I'm not going to be able to do the farm this year. Last year, we donated 8,000 pounds of food. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to do that on crutches, but we'll get back to that the following year, and just helping folks out where I can feels good. So.
That's awesome. Well, speedy recovery to you, and
Thanks.
Thank you again for all you're doing for our community in this campaign. And we're going to kick it off for a good start.
I appreciate it, gentlemen. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for everyone for watching this podcast. Go out and make our community great again.